Okay, it's day 82, and this is part two. Probably the biggest news this morning is this is Michael Cohen. This is the attorney for Trump. He's the one who is accused in Fusion GPS dossier of being in Prague and paying these programmers to do different stuff against Trump and so forth. And he's filing a lawsuit this morning for Trump against BuzzFeed. Again, this is maybe a replacement of my lawsuit. Maybe they push mine down and push this in. If it's a fake, I don't think it's a fake. I think he's pissed. He never was in Prague. He has pictures of him being in LA at the same time that he was supposed to be in Prague. He said that he was there the whole week. He's got pictures of the whole week. So I don't think this is going to be going well for Fusion GPS and their credibility. So that I'll be able to piggyback on the discovery coming from that. That's the president's own lawyer. So in a way, the president's own lawyer is jumping on this case as well. We'll follow that as it develops. The second one that's not as well known, again, happened this morning, and this is, or early this morning, which is the FEC, the Federal Election Commission, also now piggybacking, I believe, on my lawsuit, and I'll explain why. You basically, when you say you collect money for the states and then you have it all come to Brooklyn and then you don't give it back, which you're supposed to do in the sharing arrangement, that's called fraud as well. So now it's not as much fraud. It's only $84 million that wasn't given back. You might remember me talking about this with Andrew Tobias in front of Amalgamated Bank about how the money is in a Tobias strip. It looks like it's going out to the states, but it's actually in a Tobias strip, and it comes actually back in about an hour later out of the bank accounts in the states back to Andrew Tobias. I made a big joke about the Tobias strip. Anyway, there was a lawsuit about this in 2014 called McCutcheon, and McCutcheon already ruled that this is fraud. So it's not like they're going to be defining any new case law here with this case. So this is McCutcheon versus FEC. So this looks like another case, yet another case that's going to produce more discovery for me, and I'll be able to have a little bit of more wind at my back. Now, the reason why they say that this lawsuit was possible was because of Donna Brazil and the retreat that Donna Brazil made, this admission that she made about this joint funding agreement and so forth. So the key there is, I believe, that the key retreat, the reason why Donna retreated on her assertions and said that there was a sweep, there was these money sweeps starting in October 2015, was because of the metadata between DC and New York. And she knew I had it, at least in my lawsuit, 6 different ways. There's no use lying about the money and the NGP van information going on an hourly basis, especially when you have the McCluskey report out saying there was hourly sweeps and it was 7,000 illegal logins. So I think more will be coming on both of those lawsuits. The other guy I think everybody should follow is this son of Neo, or Newo, the son of Newo guy. He's really good. If you really want to go in deep on the dossier, he's the guy to follow, and I'll obviously be following because I'm suing Fusion GPS. But here he is talking about how really George Papadopoulos, with this background of 4 languages, and he's this international bon vivant being flown all over with his girlfriend that speaks Russian, so he's meeting with the Russians, and then he's meeting with the Australians, and then he's meeting with all the Five Eyes, and he's in Link University in Rome, and he's just obviously, you know, what we used to call the foreign desk or the foreign office, right? I mean, he's an obvious CIA guy. But anyway, so the idea here is that he really is the genesis of this whole dossier. He goes around to Russia and meets with all these different people. There's Boris. Hey, Boris, nice seeing you again. And he sets all this up. And then Carter Page, really, so this actually starts out with John Brennan setting this whole thing up. And Andrew McCabe is the second half of this setup. So it starts first as a CIA investigation using Papadopoulos to set all this stuff up and try to generate a FISA, and then it goes over to Andy McCabe trying to get the second FISA. So here we go. Here's a good explanation that he does on his channel.
To believe that George Papadopoulos is a key middleman source for the dossier. The dossier is George Papadopoulos. George Papadopoulos is the dossier. They're not separate things. They are the same thing. George Papadopoulos may have said these things to Downer, and he had these interactions with Mifsud, And that
Downer is the Secretary of State equivalent in Australia. Mifsud is a key, still active FSB agent in Russia.
all perhaps is extraneous to the dossier, but we know that George Papadopoulos, as again reaffirmed in this New York Times article, had extensive associations with Sergei Milian, who is the probable source D in the dossier, the guy who said that Trump peed on Obama's bed in Moscow, that guy. He talked to Milian. He talked to Boris Epstein, who is the ethnic Russian close associate.
He's my buddy from Hamilton's here in D.C., Boris Epstein, who I met.
Of Trump, who is rumored to be source E. He talked to Ivan Timofeyev, the Russian MFA connection, who was probably source A in the dossier. And Professor Mifsud seems to fit as potentially source B in the dossier, a person who may have ties to the Russian intelligence services. So Papadopoulos has known associations in 2016 with 4 of the dossier's probable sources. The fact that he may have talked to people in the dossier and he may have relayed what they told him to Chris Steele doesn't mean that any of that is true. All these people may be working together to undermine Trump.
After you go from point A to point B to point C to point D, then you go, okay, here I got the intelligence product, here's the product I produced, and then what happens is this is more of an analyst level where you say, okay, he takes the 4 reports from these 4 different meetings, and then he writes it up into this briefing, what they call a briefing or a dossier, whatever, to simplify it for a decision maker, and then that's what becomes the work product. Now this product is done by early June. So that means it's a CIA work product, and that's what goes to the Trump meeting. This becomes the first baby pee-pee dossier. So baby pee-pee is done here. Baby pee-pee isn't good enough. Baby pee-pee doesn't get the FISA. Now you have to have Andy take baby pee-pee in because the CIA can't go into the FISA court. So baby pee-pee goes in with Andy and Bruce Orr and gets turned down by Judge Contreras in June, I believe, and then they have to keep adding stuff. So that's when they decide, okay, let's set up Carter Page. And so I think Carter Page, if you don't remember him from yesterday, he's the guy I did the film about yesterday, is kind of a guy who's been around a while, and he's subject to praise and so forth, and basically they just set him up to go to Moscow to do a lecture in July. Then they added that to the PP dossier, and then Andy took it again to the FISA court. Now, did Contreras and company approve it the second time, or did they say no in July or August? And I'm thinking this is August. And that's why Obama then says, okay, we'll sign off on this insurance policy and we'll go for the covert methodology. So the third dossier, some people call this the third dossier. I think it's actually the third CIA action. So it starts out with the CIA action here through Papadopoulos, through Christopher Steele, doesn't get the first FISA A, let's call it baby PP. They add in Carter Page to add some weight and some gravity to it. It becomes the second, becomes the PP dossier. Still doesn't get it, the FISA. So then Obama now has to sign off on it, and they have to drop the Chalupa in his lap, and then he finally signs off on it. I think around August the 26th when he finally signs off, and that's what does the illegal wiretaps. Now, if they went for the second FISA later, and Contreras signed off on it, that is a whole different story, because that's going to be a very angry judge when I go in front of him for discovery about Fusion GPS, because that is fraud on the court.